Alright guys, today what we're going to be working on is part 4, mystery mineral. We're going to give you some minerals to look at in the video. You're going to have to identify the color, the luster, the streak, and the hardness of each mineral and record it in the table below. We're going to do the first one with you. The number of the mineral is on a small sticker on the mineral. After you identify each of the physical properties of the minerals, you'll look at the table on the other side of the page, which looks like this, to determine the identity of each mineral. Okay, so our first mineral we have is tag number 1. We're going to take a look at the color for it. As you can see, there's some green colors, maybe some grays, even a little bit of white in there. All right, so on your paper, we're on tag number 1, and we see green and maybe some grays in it. So on your paper, you can see number 1, and that the color of our mineral is green and gray. All right, the next thing we're going to take a look at is its luster. If we take a look at our luster on here, the main lusters that we've talked about using elements and our minerals is if it's metallic or non-metallic. All right, and on this one, we are not seeing any light reflecting off of it or any metal looking pieces in it, so we would have to say that this mineral is non-metallic. So for luster on your paper, we're going to write non-metallic.
Remember, the other word for non-metallic is dull, and this one's definitely dull. It's not shiny.
Okay, the next thing that we're going to test is its streak. We're going to use a streak plate. All right, we have the option of 2 different color streak plates to see what color streak is left behind. We're going to start by testing it on the lighter colored one because our mineral is a darker color, so we can see if it shows up for a streak. And to do a streak, we just drag it across the tile. And we don't see anything that showed up, so we're going to test it on the darker streak plate to see if it gives us a lighter colored streak. Okay, so for streak, we're just going to write down the color of the streak that's left behind, and we see the color of white. So on your paper, we're just going to write that the streak is white on your paper. All right, the next thing that we're going to test is for hardness. On our hardness test, we need some materials. We're going to use our fingernail, we're going to use our penny, and our glass if we need. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is test to see if our fingernail will scratch our mineral. So I'm just going to rub my fingernail across it. I don't see that it leaves any kind of mark behind with my fingernail. All right, so I'm going to test it now with the penny. I'm going to see if my mineral will scratch the penny by dragging it across. What do you see?
Yeah, it's scratched.
It looks like it scratched our penny a little bit right here. So our hardness must be around a 4. All right, the hardness must be around a 4 because it scratched our penny but couldn't be scratched by our finger.
In the glass, the hardness would be a little more than 5, so if you tried it in the glass, it probably should not scratch the glass.
There's no mark left behind.
Nope, so it did not scratch the glass, so then since the penny is 4 and the glass is a little more than 5, so, the penny's a little less than 4, so that means our mineral has to be 4.
It has to be somewhere in between these two. So for our paper, we're going to put a hardness of 4. Okay. Now, from knowing all of our information for our tag number 1, we need to try and identify our mineral. All right, so you're going to use the back side of your paper, which has the elements listed, and we are going to try and match some of the information from our paper. Okay, so we're just going to start by looking at the different properties that are listed. Here we have color as white. Our mineral was not white. All right, so we can go to the next one. Galena, its color is silver. Our mineral was not silver. Okay, the next mineral, a yellowish brown. Ours again was not a yellowish brown. Down here we have serpentine. So the color says green or gray. That is what we had. All right, so we need to check our other properties to see if they match. Our luster, we also said, was non-metallic. Our streak was also white. And our hardness was about a 4. So serpentine seems like a pretty good choice, but we need to double check to make sure there's none other that are similar. On this one, we have a color of black, reddish brown, black, and a blackish gray. So this one must be what our mystery mineral is. We're going to write the identity next to number 1 on our paper.
Okay, so this one was serpentine. So we'll write serpentine. And remember, I know it's tempting to look at just the color and go, oh wow, this one's reddish brown, my mineral was reddish brown, that has to be it. But there are so many different minerals that have similar colors. You can't just look at the color. You have to look at all of them, the luster, the streak, and the hardness. Altogether, this one comes out to be serpentine. Okay.
This mineral is going to be tag number 2. So on your paper, this is for number 2. We're going to take a look at the color. For the color, we kind of see a grayish color, maybe some darker spots that may even look black. All right, and then maybe some spots that look even lighter, so maybe even a little bit of white in there. All right, so anywhere between white, gray, and black for the color. All right, did you write it on your paper? For your luster, we're looking to see if it qualifies under metallic or non-metallic. Remember, metallic is shiny, looks like metal. Non-metallic is more dull. For this one, I'm not seeing any metallic pieces, so this one must be non-metallic.
Yeah, there's no shine to it.
No shine. Make sure that you write your non-metallic luster down. Okay. Next, we're going to test out our streak. Again, we have our 2 streak plates. We have our lighter colored one and our dark colored streak plate. All right. We can start testing this one. So I'm just going to take a streak plate and drag it. All right, so we have a white streak left behind, white streak. Okay, the next test that we need to do is our hardness test. So I need my supplies again for hardness. The first thing I'm going to use is my fingernail to see if it's going to scratch it. All right.
Oh, wow.
Wow, you could see that my fingernail really took a scratch out of this. So that means that this mineral is softer than my fingernail. All right, so a fingernail is between a 2 and a 3, so this has to be below a 2. Okay, so a 1 or a 2 is what our mineral is going to rate as on the Mohs hardness scale. All right, at the end, you can come back and try to identify your mineral by looking at your chart. Okay, now we have our tag number 3. This is mineral number 3. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is the color. I see a black color, maybe even a little bit of gray in with the rest of it, but for the most part, I would say that it's black. Okay. For its luster, as you look at it, you can see that it kind of has a sparkle to it, but a sparkle does not make it shiny. Shiny would be like my ring right here, how it has like a silver metal look to it where it's metallic. All right, our mineral does not have that shiny metal look to it. It's just kind of sparkly. So sparkly does not make it metallic. So our luster for tag number 3 would be non-metallic.
And it still kind of looks like a rock that you would find on the ground, doesn't it? And so it's not, it doesn't look like a metal or a piece of metal, so it's definitely non-metallic. That's good.
Okay, so let's test out its streak and see what we get. Since it's a darker mineral, I'm going to start on the white streak plate. Okay, this one is kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can get a better streak going. There we go. Okay, so this streak that's been left behind is kind of a brownish color maybe even a little touch of green in there. But I see a lot of brown coloring to its streak. Okay.
And see, that's very interesting because here's another reason why we use streak. Your mineral is black, but the streak turned out to be totally a different color than the mineral. So that's another reason why looking at all of the different characteristics, all of the different properties is very important. Okay, so this one, what did we say? A greenish brown streak. Okay.
Okay. Next, we're going to test out the hardness for our mineral. All right, I'm going to start using my fingernail to see if it scratches. Remember, we always want to start with the softest test because we don't want to ruin our mineral. All right, and I try to scratch it, and it actually takes off a piece of my fingernail. So we know that our mineral is harder than my fingernail.
I noticed your fingernail left a little bit of a streak. So that means it's definitely harder than your fingernail.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so next I'm going to use my penny because we're working our way up Mohs hardness scale. All right, and I'm going to see if our mineral will scratch our penny. All right, it leaves behind a scratch. So that means our mineral is harder than our penny. Okay, so we got to keep moving up the scale. Our penny is between a 3 and a 4, so we know that it's harder. Okay, so next I can test on the glass. The glass is between a 5 and a 6, so we're going to see if our mineral will scratch the glass. All right, and it looks like there's a very faint line left behind. So it's probably pretty close to our hardness of the glass. All right, it's pretty close to the same measurement. So somewhere between a 5 and a 6 on the hardness scale would be what our mineral would qualify as on the Mohs hardness scale.
And you probably had to push pretty hard to make that scratch,
Yes,
right? Okay,
yes, I
so-
had to push pretty hard.
Yeah, so I agree. That's probably about five
Five to six, somewhere in between 5 and 6.
Okay. All right. All right. Our next mineral that we're going to look at is tag number 4, and this is it. This one is looking at the color, pretty obviously that it's white. There's a little bit of clearness to it, but it's mostly white. In fact, if you held it up to the light, you may be able to see a tiny bit of light through it, but we're going to go ahead and call the color on this one white. All right, now the luster, okay, this is way different than the ones we've been looking at. So far, we've looked at metallic and non-metallic, but this looks like glass, kind of. It's shiny. This is more like what you would think of as a crystal, right? Okay, so this one, since it looks kind of like glass and a little bit of light can come through it, and it's got and it kind of reflects light a little bit, we're going to call this one glassy. All right, so this is a glassy luster. All right, now the streak, let's get our streak plates out here. Since this one is already a light color, it's white, we'll go ahead and try it on the black streak plate, and it makes a big old white streak. Okay, so your streak on this one is white, obviously. All right, now we've got to do the hardness. All right, so we're going to start with our fingernail, and then we'll go to the penny. And let's see, fingernail, no, it leaves nothing. That's still very shiny right there. There's nothing left behind from my fingernail. Okay, so I definitely can't scratch it. It feels like, oh yeah, if I scratch the edge of my fingernail with it, I can feel it kind of taking off my fingernail, kind of like a file. So it's definitely harder than my fingernail. All right, so the fingernail's between a 2 or a 3. All right, now let's see what we can do with the penny. All right, I'm going to try this time to scratch the mineral with the penny and see what happens. Okay. Ah, look at that. Okay, if I scratch it with the copper penny, look at that. I made a big old streak in it. Okay, like that right there. All right, so now you can see it definitely scratched it. In fact, it left a little bit of powder behind off the mineral that you can see on my finger. Okay, so the penny, scratch this, so it's softer than the penny. The penny is between 3 or 4. The fingernail is between 2 and 3, so this would be exactly a 3, okay, on your hardness. Exactly a 3. All right, this is tag number 5, and the first thing we need to look at is our color, and this is pretty black. If I was going to look and pick it up off the ground as a rock, I would probably say black. Maybe a little bit of other flecks of other color, but for the most part, this one's black. All right, and then for our luster, all right, it is pretty dull looking to me. So there may be a couple of places that have a tiny bit of shine to them, but for the most part, this is a dull one.
Again,
so,
there's not any metallic shine to them. They're just a dull kind of sparkle, if you will.
Right, you don't have anything nice and shiny like, you know, this knife blade here. So this is non-metallic for your luster, so write that one down. Okay, on your streak, since this is a pretty dark mineral, I'm going to start with a light streak plate, and we're going to give it a good scratch. Great. Okay, and my streak looks a little bit gray, a little bit black. I can rub it with my finger there. That looks a whole lot like a pencil. So I would say a good grayish black streak. All right. And then on the hardness, this one seems to be a pretty hard mineral. So I'm going to go ahead and start in the middle here, and we're going to see if it can scratch the glass. Okay, and yes, it scratches the glass pretty easily. Okay, so it's definitely harder than 5.5, where our glass is between 5 and 6. So this is definitely harder than that. Can also test it with a knife blade, and it's kind of hard to see, but if I scratch it with my knife blade, I can definitely see. I know it's going to be hard to see on the video, but I can definitely see a place there where it scratches each time I do. Okay, so it's not quite as hard as the knife, and the knife blade is about a 7, so we're going for a 6 right here for your hardness. Okay.
This tag number is number 6, mystery mineral number 6. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is the color. It has quite a bit of red coloring to it. It's really red. It has some darker spots that even look like a darker shade of brown, kind of a rusty kind of color. Okay. For luster, I don't see any metal flake looking pieces, so this one would be considered non-metallic luster. Okay, and we're going to test out the streak. Okay, and since it's a darker mineral, I'm going to start with using the lighter color streak plate. Okay, so it left behind a really good streak color. We see that it's, again, a reddish, rusty kind of color, so red and brown kind of mixed together, somewhere in between red and brown. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to test is its hardness. So I'm going to start with my fingernail. All right, and my fingernail is at between a 2 and a 3, and my fingernail is softer than the mineral, so there's not a scratch left behind. Okay, and now I'm going to try it with the penny. Let's just see if it'll scratch the penny. Let's see if we can scratch Abe Lincoln over here. It left a streak behind, but there's no scratch, so it's got to be softer than the penny. So harder than my fingernail, softer than the penny, so my penny should be able to scratch the mineral. Okay, and you can see here that it has left behind a scratch on my mineral. So that means it's between a 2.5 and a 3.5. So we would say our hardness is about a 3.
Okay.
Here we have tag number 7. So our mineral number 7 that we're trying to determine what it is. We're going to look at color. This one has different shades of brown and maybe even some yellow tints in there. So brown and yellows of different shades is what we're seeing on our mineral. Next we're going to look at its luster. For its luster, it looks very dull. So dull is non-metallic. We will write non-metallic on our paper. Next, we need to test our streak. Since it's a darker mineral, I'm going to first try it on my lighter streak plate to see what's left behind. All right, and we can kind of see that it is a yellowish color. Let's see if we can see it on our darker streak plate. Okay, so now we can compare them. They're pretty close. On here, they show up a little bit better on the darker streak plate, but we can still see that it's a yellowish brown streak that's been left behind. So yellowish brown. Okay. Next, we're going to test the hardness. Okay, so I'm going to use my fingernail first to see if it scratches. It does not scratch my mineral, so my mineral is harder than my fingernail. We can test it on the penny to see if it's going to scratch the penny. All right. There we go. There is our scratch left behind on the penny. All right, so you can see that. Next, I'm going to test to see if we can see a scratch come up on our glass. All right. Yes, it left behind a scratch on our glass. So that tells me that our mineral is harder than our glass. Our glass is about a 5.5. So next I'm going to test it with the blade, all right, to see if it leaves behind a scratch.
Yep.
All right, and right here you can see that it's scratched, so our blade is about a 7. So between a 5.5 and a 7, so we'll say that our hardness is a 6. Now we have tag number 8. This is mystery mineral number 8. If we look at its color, we can tell that the color is silver. All right, so the color is silver. Next, we're going to look at luster. As you can see, it is awfully shiny. All right, very, very shiny compared to our number 5, which is not shiny, non-metallic. It's very dull. All right.
Look at the number 3 also.
Here's our number 3, how we said it sparkled. Do you see the difference between a sparkle and being metallic? All right.
Turn the number 8 toward the camera a little. Yeah, there. Now you can see how shiny it is. Yeah, very good.
Okay. So a metallic luster for number 8. Next, we're going to test its streak. Okay. We're going to start on the lighter colored streak plate. All right, and as you can see, it's left behind a good streak. It's a kind of a gray color, maybe even a little black in some of the spots. So a gray streak. And then next we need to test our hardness. All right, so this one I think is going to be, we're gonna start with my fingernail to see if it'll scratch it. All right, and there is not a scratch left behind. It actually turned up my fingernail just a little bit. So this mineral is harder than my fingernail. Okay, so we're gonna test it with the penny, and I'm gonna try to scratch the penny. Let's see. All right, it left behind some mineral. I'm not seeing a scratch left behind. No? Are you seeing a scratch?
No.
I'm not seeing a scratch left behind either. All right.
So see if the penny will scratch it.
Okay, so let's see if our penny is harder than our mineral. Okay, and right here we can see that it is leaving behind a bit of a mark on our mineral.
Okay.
All right, so right in there, it's leaving a mark. So our penny is at a hardness of about 3.5. So our hardness for mineral number 8 will be around a 3.
Mm-hmm. It's barely softer than the penny, so about a 3. Okay, good.